with a word of prayer. Father, thank you for this afternoon. Thank you for the book of Genesis. Allow us to be able to see what this book is saying to us. Help it to be applied to our lives and to our hearts. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, so let's start with the quiz. Question number 1. Mrs. Gromer, question number 1.
How many of Joseph's brothers were presented to Pharaoh? 5 of them. 5 of them. That's correct. 5 of them were presented. Question number 2, Jacob. Go ahead and take question number 2.
Question number 2. What question did Pharaoh ask Joseph's brothers? What is your occupation?
What is your occupation? All right, that's good. Jack, question number 3.
What answer did Joseph's brethren give in response to Pharaoh's question? Thy servants are shepherds?
That's right. Thy servants are shepherds. We're shepherds. Question number 4, please.
In what part of Egypt did Pharaoh assign Joseph's brethren to live? Goshen.
That's right. Tammy, question number 5.
What member of Joseph's family blessed Pharaoh? Jacob, Joseph's father.
That's correct. And Caroline, question number 6.
How old was Jacob when he stood before Pharaoh? 130 years?
That's right. 130 years old. We're almost there. Right.
No, not really.
Okay. Mrs. Gromer.
Who provided nourishment for Jacob and his family? Joseph.
That's right. Jacob, next question.
Who gathered up all the money that was found in the land of Egypt? I think that would also be Joseph.
It was also Joseph. In other words, the people gave all the money to buy food, buy corn. That was before donuts, but they used to buy all the grain to make bread and so forth. They expended all their money, and so Joseph had all the money in the land. Question number 9, Jack.
What finally failed in the land of Egypt and Canaan, and why? Money?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And why did it fail? Understand what it means by failed?
Not really.
It was all gone.
Okay.
We just talked about it a few minutes
Gone
ago.
or useless.
Yeah, I come to see that. I was using the King James Large Edition.
Okay.
You know,
Yes, it
I
probably
would have gotten it. Now, if I would have used the Amplified, which I don't use,
Yes.
that would have been totally different.
Yeah, you just stick with the King James, Jack. So you don't want to be confused with something that's totally different. Let me read the verse here. 47:15. And when the money failed in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan, all the Egyptians came unto Joseph and said, Give us bread, for we should die in thy presence, for the money faileth. So,
I got a question about
Sure.
that question. Could the money have failed because there was a famine?
it was famine, and they used all their money to buy bread, to buy the grain.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they used all the money because they needed the food to prepare for the famine.
That's right. They needed the money to buy the food. And then so they spent all the money to buy food, and then the food was all gone. And so they had no money left.
They had no more money, and that means
Yes.
no more food, and that was when the famine started.
That's correct. That's right.
I want
That's
to make
right.
sure I'm on track.
You are on track. You got it. Bill, next question.
In your opinion, what is the key verses from chapter 47 and why? Well, I chose verse 1
Okay.
because from the very start of this chapter, God's plan to save Israel was fulfilled.
Right. Did we get number 10 yet, I wonder? Well, anyway. So
That's number 10.
That's number 10? Okay, my number 10 is different than your number 10. Okay. I have an old edition. I'm sorry.
Edition or a previous or later chapter?
I just have for some reason so in your opinion, what is the key verse for chapter 47?
Was verse 1.
Okay, so do you have a verse, Caroline, you picked up? No? Mrs. Gromer, did you pick a verse out?
Yes, I've got verse 27. And Israel dwelt
Mm-hmm.
They were going to be a great nation.
Right. That's right. And Jacob, which verse do you pick?
I have verse 25, but after hearing what Bill said, I think I concur with that.
You're going to change your answer to verse 1. Okay.
Take one of them.
Okay, good. All right, you're allowed to change your answer. It's all right. Jack, what one you pick?
For number 10,
Yes.
I picked verse 4. For the famine is sore in the land of Canaan.
Why you pick that one?
I just picked that because I just saw the to me the main emphasis of the chapter was the famine.
Yes, that's right. That is the emphasis of the chapter.
That's why I picked that.
Yeah, would make sense. Yeah, so it was just kind of explaining what the chapter was about the famine.
Right.
All right. Caroline, take question 11, please.
What did Joseph suggest the Egyptian and others trade in exchange for corn? Cattle?
Yeah, they're cattle. That's correct. They had cattle, and they traded in the cattle for corn. And Mrs. Grummer, question number 11.
12.
Number 12. 12. Thank you. 12.
And Tom, what did the Egyptians and, I can't read my writing. What did the Egyptians and others trade in exchange for corn? Their bodies and their land.
Okay, that's right. That's right. And Jacob, next question, please.
What else? Let me see. In time, what else did the Egyptians trade for corn?
I just did that one time.
Uh-oh. The people eventually owned all the land in Egypt. What else?
Pharaoh, that's right. Pharaoh, that's correct. And Jack, question 14.
What is the only people group in Egypt that did not trade their land for corn? And 2, why Genesis? Okay. I picked the priests.
The priest, that's right. And why did the priest have to sell their land, or what was the reason for that?
I didn't add all that because I didn't want to get too wordy.
Yes, it would have been very wordy.
I just wanted to get to the point.
The answer is the priests, and the why was kind of a wondering.
Pharaoh already provided for them.
Yeah, Pharaoh had provided for them. Pharaoh, in other words, Pharaoh gave them an allowance of food every month or every week or every day, and so they didn't have to be concerned with food. As long as there was food from Pharaoh, they got their food.
Yep.
Now, if Pharaoh ran out of food, then they would be in trouble. But Pharaoh had plenty of food. All right, let me see.
Either he had a lot of money or he was resourceful, one or the other.
The reason he had a lot of food was because of Joseph.
Oh, okay.
Joseph, just a second, Jacob. I'll get you to a second. Joseph said, he interpreted his dreams and said, this is what you have to do. You have to, during the years of plenty, you have to reserve 20% or 1/5 of all the harvests and store it away for the famine. And it was a bountiful harvest for 7 years. Very good 7 years of more than above average returns or yields of the crops.
I believe it was called More of Plenty.
Plenty, that's right. That's right. Plenty is the word. Jacob, go ahead. What were we going to say?
Didn't the priest have a non-profit? They had a contract, didn't they, with a non-profit organization?
Yeah, with the.
You didn't respond like you were last time we called in, right from the moon. Yeah, me too. Yeah. Can we try to go back?
Yeah, so I'm like on the other side of the moon right now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just like Friday when we had to call back.
Okay, call me back. That's fine. Call me back. That's good. Good. Okay, I understand. Good. Good. Fine. Call me back. Okay, so the grummer's going to call us back here in a moment. Let me see what you answered that last question, Jack. So Bill, take the next one, please.
What did Joseph give to the people to sow? And 2, what portion of the increase were they to return to Pharaoh? He gave them seed, and they were to return 1/5.
That's right. He gave them seed corn or seed whatever, and they were supposed to plant it, and then
harvested, and they returned 1/5 of that seed. And so, good.
Those were actually pizza shells that grew out of those seeds.
Okay, they grew pizzas.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Is it better?
I think it might be better. It's better than Jacob.
Much better.
Good, super. I wonder. Okay, I'm trying to think through the reason why. Maybe I think I may know what the reason is. So, ask me after class, Jacob, and I'll tell you we can solve it the next time. Perhaps. I'm not positive. Okay, let me see. Tammy, the next question, please.
Number 16. What was one of the laws Joseph made in the land of Egypt? That Pharaoh should have a fifth part, or 20%, of all that was grown.
Yes, that's correct. And Caroline, 17.
Who grew and multiplied exceedingly in the land of Goshen? Israel?
That's right. That's correct. Yeah. Question 18. Shall I read the verse?
Okay.
Or should I read the question?
Question.
Okay.
That would be better.
Now the previous question, the question number 17, was a hint for this one, but I'm not sure if you remember what it was. Question number 18. How many years did Jacob live in the land of Egypt?
Well, when he got there, he was 137.
When he got there, he was 137.
Oh, he was 130.
130.
Pardon me, he was 130. That's right. He was 130 when he got there. Thank you for clarifying
He
that.
died when he was 137.
He died when he was 147.
Oh, I'm bad.
So-
So how many years?
So it would be 17.
17 years. That's correct. 17
Good
years.
job.
And Mrs. Grummer, question number 19.
Where was the one place that Jacob did not desire to be buried upon his death? In Egypt.
And he didn't want to be buried in Egypt. I don't want to be buried in Egypt either.
Me too.
Yeah, he wanted to be with his family.
He did. Back in the cave of Macpelia.
Yeah, don't blame him for that.
And let me see, Jacob, question number 20.
Well, I'm trying to make my memory work here. I would say that there's so much God's providence in here. I think that's
So the providence of God. That's good.
and these guys deserve life. He had that planned out already.
Yes.
Especially the progeny of Israel. You know, the seed of David and all that. That Christ.
Is that the backup?
Yeah, I'm not understanding how it's supposed to be organized.
Oh, just put it on top. But there's
Well, it's not organized.
the backup goes in one stack. The unbackup goes in the other stack. But we'll figure that out as time progresses. Jack, what did you get for? You see the blank ones? You know what the blank ones are?
I already put
Good, good.
okay.
I missed that part of it. What did you get for number 20, Jack?
I got in verse 4, once again, the famine is sore in the land of Canaan.
Okay, good. That's good. Bill, how about you?
I got an overarching kind of philosophical reason, which is not very important, but I'll
Okay.
state it anyway. God works his plan through us and for us. Man usually gives himself credit for everything that is done because he doesn't normally observe how he himself is too proud to see that he is really not the source of any of his ideas.
That's good. That's how it is quite often in our society.
Yeah, I mean,
Sadly, yeah.
when we come up with an idea and we start patting ourselves on the back, you start thinking, well, okay, where did I get that idea from? And usually you can't answer the question, which means, yeah, it wasn't my idea.
Tammy, how about you? What do you get for 20?
How that God used Joseph to save the lives of people both of Egypt and of Canaan because of God's perfect directions via all the difficult circumstances of his life, and that Joseph was a great blessing to Pharaoh.
That's good.
Everything fits together so perfectly when
Right.
God does it.
That's right.
You know, no matter, it can take years for a plan to fall into place, and when you look back on it, you think only God could have done that.
That's right. So, Caroline, what's something you remember from Genesis 47? Anna, how about you?
I do that now.
Okay, now you're in the midst of operating the equipment back there, I see. And Jacob, what's something you remember from Genesis 47?
Mrs. Gromer.
Oh, Mrs.
You already gave it.
Oh, Mrs. Grummer, I'm sorry.
Well, quite a bit from chapter 47, but one of the things that kind of jumped up at me was like the priests, they got to keep their land, and they got to eat off of Pharaoh's table, or food from Pharaoh's table, I suppose. And the way I look at it is Pharaoh, he was just, I mean, like, for a while there when I was reading it, I thought Pharaoh could have been a Christian, but I don't think so. I think he was just wanted the blessings and not the blesser.
That's interesting. Interesting point.
That's something I've wondered about through all of these
Right.
chapters. How much did Joseph teach Pharaoh about God? You know, we don't really know.
Right.
But that sort of pops up
It does, doesn't it?
quite a bit.
It does pop up quite a bit. So, any more thoughts on Jacob? You had a thought of 47?
Like a lot of Christians now, they have the same kind of attitude. They just want the blessings.
Yeah.
That's right. That's correct. That's what they want. It's the blessings. Well, let's begin chapter 48 here. Mrs. Grummer, you read 2 verses, and then Jacob, you can read 2 verses, and then we'll start with you, Jack, and then go through the room and each read 2 verses. Sorry about that. We're missing our verses back there, but we'll get them soon.
It came to pass after these things that one told Joseph, Behold, thy father is sick. And he took with him his 2 sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. And one told Jacob and said, Behold, thy son Joseph cometh. Behold, unto thee. And Israel strengthened himself and sat upon the bed.
And Jacob said unto Joseph, God Almighty appeared unto me in Luz in the land of Canaan and blessed me. And said unto me, Behold, I will make thee fruitful and multiply thee, and I will make of thee a multitude of people, and I will give this land to thy seed after thee for an everlasting possession.
Jack, 5 and 6.
And now they 2 sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, which were born unto thee in the land of Egypt, before I came unto thee into Egypt, are mine, and as Reuben and Simon, then they shall be mine. And thy issue, which thou biggest after them, shall be thine, and shall be called after the name of their brethren in their inheritance.
And as for me, when I came from Padan, Rachel died by me, and in the land of Canaan, in the way, when there was but a little way to come unto Ephraim, and I buried her in the way of Ephraim, the same is Bethlehem. And Israel beheld Joseph's sons, and said, Who are these?
And Joseph said unto his father, They are my sons, whom God hath given me in this place. And he said, Bring them, I pray thee, unto me, and I will bless them. Now the eyes of Israel were dim for age, so that he could not see. And he brought them near unto him, and he kissed them and embraced them.
And Israel said unto Joseph, I had not thought to see thy face, and lo, God had showed me also thy seed. And Joseph brought them out from between his knees, and he bowed himself with his face to the earth.
And Joseph took them both, Ephraim in his right hand toward Israel's left hand, and Manasseh in his left hand toward Israel's right hand, and brought them near unto him. And Israel stretched out his right hand and laid it upon Ephraim's head, who was the younger, and his left hand upon Manasseh's head, guiding his hands wittingly, for Manasseh was the firstborn.
And he blessed Joseph and said, God, before whom my father Abraham and Isaac did walk, the God which fed me all my life long unto this day, the angel which redeemed me from all evil, bless the lads, and let my name be named on them, in the name of my fathers Abraham and Isaac, and let them grow into a multitude in the midst of the earth.
Right, so these are some verses here in chapter 48 of the book of Genesis. We're coming to the close of the book of Genesis. Jack, how many chapters do we have in Genesis?
50.
50 chapters, that's right. 50 chapters, so we're getting near the end of it. And
It's 10 more than Exodus.
it is 10 more than Exodus. Exodus 40, that's correct. 10 more. And so we have here in verse 1, we notice that Jacob is sick. Now, we've all gotten sick before, from time to time, but this is not. This is like a final sickness.
At 147, yeah, I guess so.
His final. I'm not sure if he sensed that. The guy that told him this is a sickness that's going to be your last sickness you're going to have, which in a certain sense, that's a positive thing for believers especially, and for non-believers it's a very negative thing. For believers, people that put their trust in the Lord Jesus Christ, it's a positive thing to be able to die and to go home with the Lord. So she's sick, and Joseph is told that he's sick, and he brings his 2 sons with him. Mrs. Grummer, what's one of the sons' names?
Manasseh.
Manasseh. And Jacob, what's the other son's name? Ephraim. So we have Manasseh and Ephraim. Manasseh is the oldest. Ephraim is the youngest. And so Jacob had learned that Joseph was going to come visit him with the 2 grandsons. And so what did he do, Jack? What, in verse 2, what did Jacob do when he discovered the fact that he was going to get a visit from Joseph and Manasseh and Ephraim? Near the end of verse 2 there.
Yeah, okay. He sat upon the bed?
He strengthened himself, he sat upon the bed, so he was getting ready for the visit.
Right.
He had the energy, knowing the fact that he was going to get a visit from his son and his grandsons. God gave him the strength to be able to sit on his bed and to strengthen himself.
Right, so he was sick and couldn't do it. But the reason he did it was through God.
That's correct. And what did Jacob say to Joseph? Bill, what did Jacob say to Joseph?
Who are these 2 boys?
That's right. He's wondering who they are. And they are, of course, they were the sons that were born to Joseph and his wife there in Egypt. And Joseph, brother Jacob, reminds Jacob that about God appearing to him in Luz, and how God had blessed him. And if we remember, this is going back quite some time ago in the life of Jacob, but still as part of his life. He, if you remember the situation, what was his brother's name? What was Jacob's brother's name? Esau. And he was the younger, and Esau was the older.
Yeah.
But he saw the birthright, he saw the blessing.
Isaac was the younger too.
But of Abraham, I mean, he was the son of promise. He was the only son of Sarah and Abraham. But so Jacob, after he was coming back from Laban, after he had served 20 years, God appeared to him, and he's reflecting back on that in verse 3. God Almighty appeared to me at Luz, the land of Canaan, and blessed me. And God continued to promise to Jacob. You remember the promise he gave to Abraham and Isaac, as far as giving them a blessing of land and of seed. And he says, I will give, in the end of verse 4, I will give this land to thy seed after thee for an everlasting possession. So the land over there in the Middle East, it's a gift from God
to the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to the 12 tribes. And he refers to, yes, Tammy.
And it's talked about in 28, chapter 28,
Okay.
in verse 19, and prior to that.
Is there a short amount to read there?
Well, I mean, it's like, I'm not sure exactly where we started. And Jacob waked out of his sleep, and he said, "Surely the Lord is in this place, and I knew it not."
Yes.
And he was afraid and said, "How dreadful is this place? This is none other but the house of God. This is the gate of heaven." And Jacob rose early in the morning and took the stone that he had put for pillows and set it up for a pillar, and poured oil on top of it. And he called the name of that place Bethel, but the name of that city was Luz at the first.
So this is as he's going to his uncle's house.
And the Lord prior to that is basically passing the promises he made to Abraham on to Jacob.
That's right. And he says that Manasseh and Ephraim are results of God's blessing of seed. And he names, Reuben, Simeon, and primarily Reuben and Simeon, and all the sons that he has, all the 12 and the daughter, are a result of God's blessing and God's fulfillment of his promise. And in verse 6, Tammy, what does Jacob remind Joseph about in verse 6? Continuing on with the promise, continuing on with the conversation.
His children, Joseph's children, shall be thine, the other ones other than Ephraim and Manasseh.
That's right.
But Ephraim and Manasseh were going to be Jacob's.
Yes.
As a part of the promise to him for the 12 patriarchs. There would be part of those patriarchs.
Yes, that's right. And
or 12 tribes.
who died in? Which one of Jacob's wives died in Padan, Caroline? Verse 7. Which one of his wives died? Rachel. Yeah, Rachel died. Remember Rachel? What was Rachel's sister's name again? Leah. And then we had each of them had a handmaid, and they were kind of. There was just this. His father-in-law deceived him, tricked him. He tricked the trickery. The tricker himself got tricked by. He wanted to marry Rachel, but the day of the wedding, the night of the wedding, he presented him with Leah to marry, and he didn't discover this until the sun came up the next day that it was Leah, not Rachel. And I'm not sure that all the policies of how they did the weddings in that time period, but I've seen some weddings with Jewish weddings that are arranged marriages. But, the bride's face is covered, not just with a veil, but actually with almost with fabric of a sort. Maybe this she can see through it. Do you know about that, Jack, or not?
Yes, I do.
Tell me about how the arranged marriages work in Jewish weddings, or is it any Jewish weddings the bride's face is covered completely?
Not as much as it used to be. But what happens is the father, let's say if you were Jewish.
Okay.
Okay. You have a daughter named Anna.
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. She met somebody, a male. Okay.
Yes.
All right. And she meets this male she likes.
Okay.
Okay. She wants to marry him. Well, he asks her for her hand in marriage.
Okay.
Okay. And then what happened is she says, "Well, I don't know. I have to talk to my father. We have to." And then what happens is he has to go for an interview.
Okay.
And who interviews him?
I do.
You do.
Yeah.
Okay. You interview him.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is when you interview him, you ask him certain questions, and you decide if he's right for your daughter. And if he is not right, you say, "Okay, Anna, wait, you got to find somebody else." And then you set up another interview.
Okay.
So what happens is that's how it's done. They don't really cover their face, but the bride now here's another thing. My mother has a friend, okay, and they both got married. He was Italian,
Okay.
and she was Jewish.
All right.
The father met him, and he said, "I'm not making a wedding for you and my daughter." He says, "Only on one condition." He said, "You have to convert." And he says, if you convert, then I'll make the wedding. So he really was in love with her, and he did convert. And he said it was very difficult. He said he really loved her, and he had to go through. He said he even went through circumcision, and he says that as an adult, he said it's very, very painful. But he had to do that because if he wanted her hand in marriage, he had to be obedient to to her father. But then the way I look at it is, when I studied Exodus, we were looking at God, we were looking at false idols. Okay, so it might be. I'm not saying it was totally that way, but it was kind of moving in the direction that that he was looking at the Father as God.
Okay.
And if anybody but God if you're looking at anybody as God except God, it's the personification of idolatry.
It is. That's right, Jack. We shouldn't do that.
No.
We shouldn't.
But that's how the marriages get rearranged. And if anybody really wants to see a marriage get really arranged from the Jewish religion, or really they should see try to get the soundtrack of the movie, of the Broadway play Fiddler on the Roof.
Okay.
And they would get a good education on how the father arranges the marriage for the daughter.
Now, in some cases, the daughter or the son don't have any really say in the matter. It's just two fathers get together. I mean, this is in some very small sector of Judaism and some other types of cultures where the children have no say in who they're going to marry. There's an arrangement that's made. Even sometimes sometimes the arrangement's made when they're younger, but sometimes the arrangement's made and they don't know what the bride looks like.
She's got lots of money. Who cares?
But anyway, that's the case with we brought this up because we're talking about Rachel and Sarah, Rachel and Leah, and how Jacob wanted to marry Rachel, and then he ended up with Leah instead of Rachel because apparently he wasn't able to see her face. He wasn't able. It was too dark, or she was veiled, or whatever the custom was. And it was a surprise to him the next morning when the sun rose up that it's Leah and not Rachel that's close by.
If I understand correctly, Jacob was Jewish.
He was.
Right.
He was.
So he was going by Jewish tradition.
Mm-hmm. He was going by what God wanted him to do. I think this was before tradition took part in things.
Right.
So the Jewish tradition is based upon the Old Testament, based upon what Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and the 12 patriarchs have done, and.
Right, so he was doing. They were doing what God wanted them to do.
Yes, that's correct.
The only thing they were doing, the Jews, that God did not want them to do, is reject Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm. That's correct. Now Laban was not necessarily Jewish, although he wasn't. In the technical sense, he wasn't Jewish. He was an uncle. He was the brother of Rebecca. Laban was. And so, like Bill was saying, we have these two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim, and they're there. And Jacob says, "These are my sons," and he reflects upon the promise of God. Now, God had promised to provide seed. He promised descendants, and then he says, "Bring them." He wants them to come closer. And what was the? Let me see. Who did we leave off with? And what was the medical condition of Jacob? What was his ailment? Did you say?
Possibly old age.
Old age. And what did he have? Did he eat a lot of carrots?
Oh, I guess his eyesight was failing, but that's
Yes,
that's not what killed him. And then he had poor
No,
eyesight.
that's right. That's not what killed him. No, you're right.
Verse 10.
There's a verse 10. His eyes were dim.
Yes.
He did have old age.
Then I covered that with poor eyesight.
You did. He was 147, but everyone with poor eyesight is not old necessarily. I may have poor eyesight, and there are some people that don't consider me old. There are people that do consider me old, but there are some people that don't consider me old. But yes, Anna.
If you have poor eyesight, we should get you glasses.
I'm fine right now. I'm fine for the moment. At least for the moment.
In your
My arms are long enough.
some people from the outside might consider you old,
Yes.
but within your family, your immediate family, they consider you to be young because you're the youngest child in the family.
Yes, unless I go to the nephews and the nephews' children, then I'm an old person. But yeah, it doesn't.
Depends on the person.
But I don't think in the time 147, when you compare 147 to Methuselah or to Adam or those fellows, it's still young. But in the time period of the culture, now 147 is an old number. It's an old age.
I mean, even then it was pretty old.
Yes, even then it was old, and so his eyes were dim. In other words, he couldn't see very well. It was very, very dim. And the idea is, if we were to dim the lights, if the sun had set, if we dim these lights, which we don't have dimmers on them, it makes it darker in the room. We can't see as well. And so the scriptures saying that his eyes were dim, and even with the best of the light, he was able to see well. And so Joseph, son number 11, is coming with the two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. He's bringing them to him. And he came, and Jacob hugged them and kissed them. In verse 11, he says, he was happy. Who was he happy to see? Who was Jacob happy to see, Mrs. Grummer, in verse 11?
He was happy to see his son Joseph, also to see Joseph's seed.
Yes.
Happy that the Lord gave him that long amount of life to live.
That's correct. And then Jacob, in verse 12, who did Joseph bow himself to? In verse 12.
It says he bowed himself his face to the earth, and Joseph took them both, Ephraim in his right hand, and up between.
And you have a comment with that.
Well, Ephraim and Manasseh must have been fairly. I mean, they weren't like little kids.
No, they would have been teenagers.
Yeah, teenagers.
The reason why we're saying
I
that,
mean, but there were the 7 years of famine, and the 7 years of plenty, and then the 2 years, and then possibly 17 more years. So they would have been. Maybe they may not have been more. So they could have been early 20s, couldn't they?
yes, they could have. Now, we have to explain how we came up with the number, and we'll explain it again. We know that Jacob spent, Jacob spent 17 years in the land. Now that's from year 2 of the famine. From year 2 of the famine up until the time that Joseph was meeting with him, it's been 17 years. Is that right? Now we suspect that children were born during prior to in the years of plenty. Perhaps in the.
How do we know that?
Okay,
Okay, fine.
we don't know when they were born.
Well,
But my point is, okay, so what are you saying? Tell me what you're
well,
saying.
it said in one of the verses that the children came out from between his knees like they were little.
Okay.
And also, why is he bowing down to them if they're big and tall people? If they're little, you can.
That's good. That's very good close reading.
See, I always thought
That's-
they were little.
That's very close reading. And so Anna, you were close reading earlier, right? And
Yeah, earlier. And now I'm not. I was thinking about numbers.
okay. So I do see your point.
I don't think
How-
it's worship.
How it's how is possible? How these children perhaps were born after or during sometime after Jacob had already arrived into the land.
It's not necessarily chronological.
No, it's not.
Their birth.
Yeah, Jacob, go ahead. Which is a very, very interesting point there. Jacob, what's your thought?
Go back to Genesis 41, and it says when they were born here. in verse 45, 41. This was when he was put over the whole land and everything in it. 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, king of Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
See? Yeah, okay, you know what? I don't see where, the kids were born down in verse 51. I think this was before the famine, by golly. I hate to say by golly, sounds like I'm from Wisconsin. But
Yeah, it's somewhat of a mixed oath in some books. And I'm not sure if you were able to hear that conversation. I'm not sure what class that was or what the context it
Bible
was.
study on Sunday.
In Bible study this Sunday? Or this Sunday's Bible study, we talked about minced oaths, minced oaths. So in verse 41, and see that in verse 40, probably not verse 41, chapter 41, and Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh, for God said he hath made me forget all my toil and all my father's house. And the name of the second was Ephraim. God caused me to be fruitful in the land of affliction. And in verse 53 says, in the 7 years of plenteous, I was in the land of Egypt were ended. So, again, if this is chronology, if it's...
Well, it says in verse 50, were born 2 sons before the years of famine came.
Okay, so it's possible that before the famine came...
But we don't know for sure when he blessed them.
Yeah, that's true.
He may have blessed them shortly after he came.
Mm-hmm.
Because all it says was that he was sick. I mean,
Yes, that's true.
and
That's right.
even though at the end of chapter 47, it says that, like, the time drew nigh that...
So the sickness in I'm sorry, I didn't interrupt you. Go ahead. Please finish your thought. No, it matters to me.
It says that
Once you verse 10.
in 48:29, it says at the time drew nigh that Israel must die, and then that's when he tells Joseph
Okay, so
about taking him up, not burying him in
Mhm.
Egypt. But it's possible that could have even been several years before he actually died,
Mhm.
because 17 compared to 147 is not that much.
no, it's not. So it's like the difference between you and me. Not that much,
I
right?
don't know.
I'm 147. You're 17.
No.
Is that?
Before he left Canaan,
Mm-hmm.
he was faint and it was
Yes,
like
he
he
was.
going to die.
So it's possible this sickness here, this faintness is not related to his death. The day, the day of his death is still a decade or so away. 17 years could be 15, 16, 17 years away. I get what you're saying, which we need to look at that closer. If he blessed them right away, because why would he wait? Why would he wait? Which is a good question, which we should have done close thinking on this. I should have done close thinking on this. But why would he wait 17 years to meet the grandchildren? He will meet them pretty soon. He took 5 of his brothers to Pharaoh, and then Pharaoh met the 5 brothers pretty soon, right after they came to town. So why wouldn't the father, Jacob, meet the grandsons right after they come to town? So it's, you get to recalculate. So if they were born, they could have been just like, if they were born near the end of the plenteous years, and they came at year 2, so 2, 3, 4, they could have been under 5, or maybe under 10, even under
should
10.
explain why he was bowing
Yes,
down.
that's right. That's right. That would
And
explain it.
how do you put your hand on someone's head that's
When you're sitting
taller
down.
than you?
When you're seated, that's right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I was having
Could have been
trouble.
bowing too, because they were the sons of Joseph, who
Mhm.
was second in command in all of Egypt too. He was like royalty.
Right. I think Joseph is the one that's bowing in verse 12, but maybe I'm misunderstanding that. Joseph was like the royalty.
I think Joseph was the one that, it seems like Joseph could have been.
Yeah, Joseph bowed in
But
verse
how would he
12.
have brought them
But that was
out
because of
from
his
between
father.
his
Yeah.
knees?
Yes, see, they are the children. They aren't. This is not a couple months or a couple days, a couple weeks before his death. This is
Probably shortly after your.
Because we're in verse 49. That's when you see, of course, 49 follows 48. 49 talks about the time. So it's not connected. The sickness in verse 1 is not connected to his sickness, his last sickness. He was
Chapter 47.
Yes, right. Maybe he was sick because of the trip. He was all tired out, and he was just needed to get some rest, and he wasn't feeling well. And so we had for Joseph. Yes, Jacob.
The children were 15 years old. In 53, in 41:53.
41:53. Okay.
And the 7 years of plenteousness that was in the land of Egypt were ended. This is one verse after they said the names of the children. And the famine lasted 7 years. And right after this, they went to get the rest of the family in Canaan. So that would make them 15 years old because it was 2 years into the famine.
Well, not necessarily. It would make them 15 years old when Jacob died.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
so about 15 years. There would be teenagers when Jacob died.
Well, we have a math issue.
All right, okay. Anna's noticing we forgot to carry our 1 or something. Maybe we have an imaginary number that doesn't belong there.
Instead of subtracted.
Okay.
Because if they were born before the famine,
Okay.
then that would mean so
There'll be at least 19.
yes.
Okay.
So we took it the wrong way.
Yes. Yes, we made a computational error.
But they didn't wait until he died.
That's right. We should have done 17 plus 2, not 17 minus 2, to come up with 19. Because if they were, as we said, they were born right near the end of the plenteous years. Just for sake of our discussion, sake of our easy math, not as easy as the math the White House is teaching, but or whatever that stuff is the core curriculum is teaching. It's not quite that easy, or maybe it's just as complicated. But we have the fact that they at the end of the 7 years, they say they're born the last day of the plenteous years. I mean, they can't both be born on the same day, but just for sake of see who the oldest or the youngest one would be. Then we have 7 years of famine. Now Jacob shows up into 2 years into the famine, and we know that he lived 17 years in the land, so that's how we get 19. The youngest one was at least 19. Oldest one would have been older than 19. 19 plus whatever the difference between.
At the end of Jacob's life.
At the end of Jacob's life, not here.
That's not where
at this situation. So I'm glad we've so this sickness is not his sickness of his death, like I said at the beginning. It's just a stage product of his trip. He got sick. He had to recover. At age 130, he couldn't take the trip, and so he just had to recover. He was sick, and so in verse, as you follow, we're saying Jacob as far as how they were 19. One of them was 19, and one was older than 19 at the time that Jacob died. You follow that or not?
I'm not good at math.
Well, we know they were at least 17, right? Because Jacob spent 17 years in the land of Egypt, correct?
I thought he came 2 years into the famine.
He did come 2 years in the famine, but he spent 17 years in the land, and that's where we come up with a 2. That's where we come up with 19. Because I think 2 plus 17 is 19, although maybe we should get our calculator out and calculate that. Understand?
That's right. That is, you have to add. Anna's right. She is the mathematical wizard.
Yes, she is.
And I am just a schlub.
No, I guess maybe if we.
But they're still children. They're little children.
But in this context, this age thing is when Jacob dies later on in the next chapter. But in this instance, at the beginning of this chapter, I misdirected you to thinking that this was at the end of the life, and
I have to just send a reminder message here. Okay.
Is someone calling?
Yes, it's yes and no. So the idea that the idea what's happening here in this chapter, in the beginning of chapter 48, is that the sickness that he has is not the sickness that he has. Is not the sickness that he has. Just to let them know that I'll call them back in whatever in like 15 minutes or 20 minutes. Thank you. Appreciate that, Tammy. And so, what's happening here in verse 13, and what's happening in verse 13?
With 14, 13.
13. And Joseph took both Ephraim in his right hand toward Israel's left hand, and Manasseh in his right and left hand toward Israel's right hand, and brought them near unto him. So, understand what's happening here. So, I think we have, if Joseph is standing up here facing Jacob, now, if this is Joseph's right hand, this hand I'm waving right here, and Jacob, his father, is facing him, what hand, if his father put his hand out, what hand's going to touch his right hand? If Bill would stretch out here, so Jack, you want to do this?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's try this. I'm going to put up my right hand.
Uh-huh.
Touch my right hand, Jack. With your other hand. Hand is close. So what hand is Jack just touched me with?
His left hand.
His left hand. And I see what's happening here. Do the same thing with my left hand, Jack. Touch my left hand. No, with your other hand. Okay. What hand did Jack just touch me with?
His right hand.
Okay. His right hand. Now what Jack was doing, he was going to illustrate exactly what Jacob had done. We have here Ephraim, Manasseh and Ephraim are being brought before Jacob the father. And if you notice in verse 13, he took in Israel he took Ephraim in his right hand. So Ephraim was over here in his right hand, and Manasseh was in his left hand, and put them in front of Jacob. And what Jacob did, rather than putting stretching out his hand straight forward, I'm putting on Manasseh's head. He switched over here like this and put on Ephraim's head, and he crossed his hands like that, and he blessed the younger son deliberately. See, Jack did it. He just was illustrating what was happening. I just put out my hand, and he rather than touching me my right hand with his left hand, he touched it with his right hand. The same thing. But you see, Joseph wanted to have it established so that it would be easy for his father just to put his right hand out and put it in the head of on Manasseh's head to bless him. And Manasseh, see, was the firstborn. And he blessed Joseph and said, God, before whom my father Abraham and Isaac did walk, the God which fed me all my life long unto this day, the angel which redeemed me from the evil. Oh, we haven't read this yet, have we? Have we read verse 15,
Well,
16?
we did up through 16.
Okay, good. The angel that which redeemed me from the evil, bless the lads, and let my name be named on them, and the name of my fathers Abraham, Isaac, and let them grow into a multitude in the midst of the earth. Now, let's read verses 17 to the end. Mrs. Grummer, 17 please, 17 and 18.
And when Joseph saw that his father laid his right hand upon the head of Ephraim, it displeased him, and he held up his father's hand to remove it from Ephraim's head unto Manasseh's head. And Joseph said unto his father, Not so, my father, for this is the firstborn. Put thy right hand upon his head.
Jacob, go ahead.
And his father refused. I know it, my son, I know it. He shall become a people, and he also shall be great. But truly his younger brother shall be greater than he, and his seed shall become a multitude of nations. And he blessed them that day, saying, In thee shall Israel bless, saying, God make thee as Ephraim, Manasseh, and he set Ephraim before Manasseh. He crossed his arms up. He crossed his arms against, like, across each other is what he did.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And Jack, go ahead and read verses 21 and 22, please. Oh, chapter 49. Or for chapter 48, pardon me.
On,
Page 73, Jack.
okay, I'm here. I'm at the right place.
Good.
Okay. And Israel said unto Joseph, Behold, I die, but God shall be with you, and bring you again unto the land of your fathers. Moreover, I have given to these one portion above my brethren, which I took out of the land of the Amorite with my sword and with my bow.
Thanks, Jack. So in verse 17, who did upon who said that Jacob put his right hand? In verse 17, Mrs. Grummer, upon who said that Jacob put his right hand? Or Dan, do you want to get this one? I'm sorry.
Joseph.
Jacob. Jacob put his right hand upon which one of Joseph's sons?
All that hand crossing messed me up. He put it on Manasseh first.
And Joseph saw that his father put his right hand upon the head of Ephraim. So he put his right hand upon the head of Ephraim, which was actually off to his left as he was looking at him. He put his hand over on the head of Ephraim first. And what did Joseph do?
You
Now,
say he was off to his left. What do you mean?
This place.
You mean
from the perspective of Isaac, not Isaac, pardon me, the perspective of Jacob.
no,
Okay, so
okay, Manasseh was
see where
okay. Ephraim was here, and Manasseh was here, and he went like this.
I think
This is Ephraim, and this is Manasseh.
Ephraim, you got it switched around.
No, this is my left hand. This is Ephraim. This is my right hand. This is Manasseh. You're getting it mixed up.
No.
Your right hand would be on.
Okay, are you Joseph or are you Jacob?
I'm putting my hands on it, so I'm Jacob. But from Joseph's perspective, he's standing there watching.
Okay, let's look at this again. I'm sorry. If you go back to a couple of other verses,
Verse 13.
verse 15, Joseph took them both, Ephraim in his right hand.
That would be his son, his father's left hand, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Right, that's why he has
Toward Israel's left hand, it says.
Toward Israel's left hand.
Right.
And Manasseh in his left hand toward Israel's right hand.
He took Ephraim in his right hand towards Israel's left hand. You said Manasseh in his right hand towards Israel's left hand.
Is that what I
Let's do
said?
one at a time there.
So he took, okay, Joseph took,
I think you need to have an object lesson.
okay, so let me give an object lesson here. Okay, so,
Okay, you go up there, Anna.
okay,
We need two
no,
people.
you can see, we have to back it up some here.
We need
just-
two people.
You could be, who wants to be,
Jack could be one.
who wants to be, Jacob?
You're Jacob.
Who's going to be Joseph?
Mom's Joseph.
I have to get the phone.
Okay, so.
Okay, then Mr. Shepherd is
Okay,
Joseph.
and I could be Joseph.
Well, then who's Jacob?
You're Jacob.
I'm Jacob.
Okay.
Well, no, I should be Joseph.
Okay, be Joseph. Okay, be Joseph.
I'm Bill. How you doing?
Okay, so
I'm Joseph.
Ephraim's to your left hand. Manasseh's to your left hand.
No, I'm Joseph.
You're Joseph.
Right. So this is Manasseh. This is Manasseh.
The
This
oldest.
is Ephraim.
Manasseh's the oldest. Ephraim's
Jack's
the
older
youngest.
than me, though.
don't think so.
Got it?
Okay, so this is
Ephraim, Manasseh and Ephraim.
yeah.
Manasseh is over here.
Okay,
Manasseh's
so
on
this
your
is
left
my,
hand.
My left hand.
But it's my right hand.
Yeah.
Over here we have Ephraim,
Ephraim.
who's
So on my right
Your-
hand, but your
your
left
left
hand.
hand. And
So
so
now, what you're supposed to do,
what Joseph wanted him to do was to stretch go like this and bless Manasseh.
I can't.
We did get that, Manasseh. We'll have to fix it in there. But what he did is said he crossed his hand over like this. They were probably closer together. He
Yeah.
crossed his hand over like this and blessed Ephraim. Are you following that, Jack?
Yes, I am.
Good. So did we make it clear, Anna, for everybody?
Yes, but you seem to be getting everyone confused.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to get people confused. That was not my intent to confuse people. Okay, so, but is the people clear? Are people getting clear, Caroline?
Yeah.
A little bit? Okay, good. I'm glad you're clear. So, but Joseph said, "Not so, my father." In this verse 18, for this is the firstborn, put thy right hand upon his head. I guess the right hand is a place of, it's a place of honor. And his father refused and said, "I know it, my son, I know it." So Jacob knew exactly whose head his right hand was being placed upon. He knew it was the youngest of the two. It says, "He shall become a people, and he shall also be great. But truly, his younger brother shall be greater than he, and his she shall become a multitude of nations." And so the blessing was, "In thee shall Israel bless, saying, God make thee as Ephraim and as Manasseh." And he said Ephraim before Manasseh. So that's what Jacob did. And what did Israel say to Joseph in verse 21? He says, "Behold, I died. But God shall abide with you and bring you again into the land of your fathers." It's a promise of going back to the land of the fathers. And how much more of a portion did Jacob give to Joseph than his brothers? In verse 22. You know what that would be? Jacob, what would it be?
The portion above, that would be twice much.
Yep. Yeah, one portion above. That's correct.
It would be double.
Good. And he says, he took out of the hand of the Amorite with my bow, or with my sword and with my bow. So there's chapter 48 of Genesis. Any thoughts or questions anyone has? Mrs. Graham, what are some thoughts you have about this chapter?
The hands got me a little confused, but well, it's very interesting on Jacob's sickness, because like over here in 10, he must have been old enough for his eyes to be bad.
Yes.
But he wasn't old enough where he wasn't dying at the time. But
Yeah, he was about 130.
right.
And once he had 130, I suppose I would have started having eye trouble. So what confused you about the hands, Mrs. Bremer? Is it clear to you now? Did we clarify that with our object lesson that Anna helped us do?
Yes, my computer went out, so I couldn't see what you were doing, but yes, I think I got it now.
Okay. You have to watch it on BFTBC Rewind. Jacob, what are your thoughts about this section?
Yeah, I was reading this morning, 2 Chronicles, and in chapter 5, 1 Chronicles, chapter 5, verses 1 and 2.
Yes.
And this was very convenient, because where my mama was reading today and answered one of her questions that I don't remember, but this refers back to this. "Now the sons of Reuben, the firstborn of Israel, for he was the firstborn, but forasmuch as he defiled his father's bed, his birthright was given unto the sons of Joseph, the son of Israel, and the genealogy is not to be reckoned after the birthright." Okay, the genealogy not to be reckoned after the birthright is talking about the Messiah. "For Judah prevailed above his brethren,
Yes.
I think the other day, Ruth, a couple days ago, Ruth 4:9-17. And this clears something up there that you know, how we were like, well, there was nobody in that story that was, everything was wrong. But no, from God's view, it was, let me see if I can find Ruth here. Okay, got Ruth. All right. And this is after Boaz got the right, after the first choice of the kings of Redeemer threw it off on Boaz. And Boaz said unto the elders and unto all the people, ye are witnesses this day that I have brought all that was Elimelech's, and all that was Chilion's and Mahlon's in the hand of Naomi. Moreover, Ruth the Moabitess, the wife of Mahlon, have I purchased to be my wife, and to raise up of the dead upon his inheritance, the name of the dead be not cut off from among his brethren, and from the gate of the place. Ye are witnesses this day. And all the people that were in the gate and the elders says, we are witnesses. Now get this, the Lord make the woman that has come unto thee like the house, unto thine house like Rachel, and like Leah, which two did build the house of Israel, and do thou worthily in Ephrathah, and be famous in Bethlehem, and let thine house be like the house of Perez, whom Tamar bare unto Judah, of the seed which the Lord shall give thee of this young woman. So we already knew the bloodline was coming through there today.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
That's good. Thanks, Jacob.
So
That's good. That's good. Very good. And Jack, something you recall from this section?
It seems like Jacob and Joseph were doing a lot of blessing in the land
Yes,
of Canaan.
Jacob especially. He's been blessing. Bill, something you've observed from this section?
Well, nothing in particular that hasn't already been said.
Okay. Caroline? Anna?
It's just interesting how there's like a lot of times it wasn't the oldest. I mean, lots of people look at the oldest and they oh, it was wonderful. But let's see, you had Jacob, and he was the youngest, and then you have Ephraim, and Judah was, well, he wasn't the youngest, but he wasn't the oldest either.
Right.
And then you have David, and he was the youngest. And it's just an interesting.
That's interesting. It is very interesting. All right. More comments than anyone has. All right, Bill, go please close your prayer, Bill.
Father in heaven, thank you for giving us these lessons. Thank you for providing us with your word so that we can learn each day. And even though we may think of things as a certain way, there's these constant lessons that we read which show us that much of our thinking is wrong, and we must bring our thoughts in alignment with yours. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.